Thanks a lot for coming, everyone. Great to see a lot of people. And it's funny, Clem mentioned Agile Lithuania or Agile Vilnius. I was actually there 2 weeks ago. And I had to preface the talk and beg for forgiveness for my voice. But being closer to home, I think you all understand us quite well, which is a nice change for someone like me. But yeah, the topic is AI-powered Agile. And just to signpost slightly, 5 major sort of themes I want to cover. A little bit about the tools and the issue that I ran into that I think a lot of you will have too. Some AI apps for delivery, going beyond sort of the basic use cases that I'll sketch through. Some free stuff. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. Take what you think's great, leave what you think's rubbish. And then hopefully some questions at the end. But just to sort of set the scene. And this is a bit of a resurrection of a topic that was really hot for a year, then sort of died off a bit. But I sort of brought this back because the tools and the technology is really evolving and getting a lot more intricate and a lot more powerful now, which is cool. The problem I ran into, we've got loads of tools available now that can do everything. Writing, video, text-to-speech, speech-to-text, image, video generation, whatever you want, there's an AI tool to help you out now. The problem for people like us is getting really good Agile delivery use cases or even project management use cases, things that are really going to make a difference in your day-to-day role. There's a lot of sort of tricks and hacks around, hit it with this prompt and it'll give you something vaguely useful back. But getting those really effective use cases that you can use week in, week out in your role is sort of what I'm driving at in the first part of this. So what I did was I stumbled onto a tool called AWS PartyRock. Has anyone heard of this? Has anyone used it? Cowards. But I suppose AWS PartyRock, the way I conceptualize it is, it's a bit like an LLM on steroids. I know what you're all thinking, that's not me. But this time next year, it could be. But yeah, think of it as you give it a prompt. Some black magic happens in the bedrock foundational models at Amazon that we don't need to know too much about. And then it'll give you back an application that's made of AI-powered widgets. So you can think of, you might get an image generation widget, some text back, something else that does a table for you. It sort of collates a lot of things and gives you a lot of stuff back, which is pretty cool. I've got 8 applications that I want to walk through. I'm not going to live demo all of these because there's far too much risk and I will look like a fool. But I do have a quick example to walk through before we start. Can anyone guess what they think my first AI-powered application was? I'm from Sunderland, by the way. Football, good guess. Sunderland AFC Bet Builder. And this was actually pretty cool, and it's a good way to sort of show the mechanism. So we'll start with an input prompt, and here I've just sort of sketched out. I want an application that will create me 3 bets I can put on the next Sunderland game. I'm going to give you Sunderland starting lineup and who we're playing, and I want you to give me back 3 bets. And this was actually pretty good. It took in the lineup for the Swansea and the Sunderland game, and it gave me back 3 bets to go for. It's pretty good actually to know Sunderland very well, bet on us to score first and then lose in the end. It's clearly a Sunderland fan. But this was actually pretty good. It was pretty true to life. 2 out of 3 of those came in. I'm not trying to say I've made a money-making machine here, but this was better than me, at least in that game. So a good way to start. That's sort of the mechanism. So let's go for a little bit more Agile delivery use case stuff. The first one is one that probably everyone's done with ChatGPT or Claude. You sort of use it as a coach, a mentor, that expert tutor to give you some good ideas. So what I've asked for here is an application I can use to go through any problems, any challenges I've got at work. And I want you to give me back 3 good ideas that I can try to see how it goes. So one that I think a lot of Scrum Masters especially will run into, my daily Scrum's consistently going over 15 minutes. What can I do? And it spits back 3 ideas. And this is, I sort of lovingly call this my Jose Mourinho application because it's sort of tactics on demand for new stuff that you want to try and see if you can make a difference. So that's sort of a very easy, straightforward one. Again, just illustrating the mechanism, but we can go a bit further than that. So metrics were sort of flavour of the month a few months back on LinkedIn for the Agile scene. And I thought, could AI help us there? So what I've asked for here is an application that I can use to add a metrics lens to my team. I'll tell you a bit about what my team does, and then you tell me what metrics will be useful to get a read on how they're performing, how we can elevate their effectiveness, all that good stuff. So I'll start with a fictional use case. I don't need to go into that too much detail or read it word for word, but basically it's a team that's developing a data platform with some AI-powered tools, and we're using bleeding edge tech. It'll take in that description, and it spits me back 2 lists, and that's pretty good. It gives you lots of good stuff in there. The eagle-eyed among you have probably seen some bad stuff, but just to pick out what's good in there, There's stuff in there from Flow, from Kanban, from Dora, from the Agile Manifesto. That's all pretty good stuff, but you still do need to apply that supervisory layer. There's also some bad stuff. Velocity, lines of code, story points, testing coverage. This is probably not the gold standard that we're looking for. But as a starter for 10, 2 seconds work, and I've got 2 complements of sort of metrics that I can start to use to illustrate how my team's performing now, which is pretty good for taking that manual workload away. Number 3, if anyone's connected with me on LinkedIn, I apologize for terrorizing you with themed retrospectives, but this is going to be another one. So, an application that's sort of close to home for me, an application that can create themed retrospectives, take in a theme, spit out some discussion prompts, I'll take that to a session. The theme I asked for was Arnold Schwarzenegger, a personal hero of mine, and very quickly that spits back 4 retro prompts for an Arnold Schwarzenegger themed retrospective. My favourite one is the final one. Arnold liked to use visualization to motivate himself. Invite the team to close their eyes and visualise Arnold congratulating them on a job well done. This is my dream retrospective. Arnold Schwarzenegger shaking my hand, patting me on the back. I couldn't ask for more. But again, another really quick way to develop a retrospective that can have a theme, increase some engagement, and give your team something fresh to work with at a retro. Application number 4, a status reporter. You might see status report and get turned off straight away. Try not to think of this as a status reporter application. Try and think of this more as a mechanism for generating any documentation that you need to create regularly that has some kind of framework or template that you just need to plug some stuff into. So there's a few new bits to this and a few new sort of ideas that I like to explore when we talk about AI. I think a lot of people do a lot of type and hit enter, something comes back and we say, no, that's crap, try again. Has anyone tried using a sort of dictaphone type application or a speech to text application to interact with AIs before? Anyone? Did you find anything different when you did?
I've got it generated quicker.
Speed's one thing. Yeah, well, the really nice thing, instead of thinking consciously about the additional context that I need to give to an AI for it to give me something back useful now, when I'm just talking to it, I can just free roll it, and I can free roll it for as long as I like because the context windows are so huge now. You could talk to it conceivably for half an hour, and then it'll give you back in 10 seconds something that's going to be a lot more useful than hit, response, hit again, response, you crap, try again. It really gets you out of that habit of getting frustrated. You can sort of front load a lot of that additional context and a lot of the sort of ideas that are going to help it out and make it. The way to think of this is you're turning a closed book exam into an open book exam. You're giving it much more to work with and giving it much more direction around what a good answer is going to look like for you. And that's really helpful. Also by using the... Yeah?
It's very different to like speaking to Alexa then, because I struggle with my Alexa to understand me. So if you're saying it's a real bonus moving to that way of speech recognition will get you fast results,
I'd encourage you to try it and see what happens. There's a little bit of experimentation to find a dictaphone app or a speech to text that'll work with your accent if you sound like me. Totally honestly, there's a few that just don't work, and my girlfriend's in Glasgow and she can't get one that works either. So there is a little bit of experimentation to find something that works. Once you've found something that's reliable, I think you'll see an improvement in terms of the effectiveness of the responses that you get back. And you'll also, a little bit how you learn to prompt things effectively, you'll learn, it's a little bit like working with developers, you'll learn how to talk to them in a way that they will give you stuff, which is pretty cool. But yeah, so front loading that, and also what this does is it makes your interactions with an LLM more conversational. You're not quite as static, contained, and robotic about how you interact now. And that's really helpful for the LLM to learn more about you, your use case, and what you want from it. A second bit, which is pretty good, is document upload now. And does anyone know what I mean by RAG? If I tell you, cool. Okay, nodding heads. I'll not go into too much detail. But what we can do for a status report or a sprint burn or whatever sort of thing we're producing regularly, we can give it a template or a collection of templates to show it what it is that we are going to do. So I can say, I want a status report with a description of what's happened this week. I want the key ins, the key plan for next week, and I want risks, assumptions, issues, dependencies. Here's my last 3. This is what I want. Again, we're giving the LLM so much material to work with that it's naturally going to get closer and closer to what it is that you're looking for. The really nice thing about uploading more than one document, you might be tempted here to just put a template in, which is fine. That'll help. What can also be good is if you've got a historical view of sort of status reports that you've given for the last 4 or 5 weeks, the LLM can now start to build a narrative of how this project's gone over the last 4 to 5 to 6 weeks, which can be helpful for drawing out hidden themes that maybe you're sort of overlooking because you've got other things on your mind. We're all busy people and trying to get results. But the LLM can also give you other ideas, and it's nice to, one sort of nice hack or trick is to give it a lot of stuff and then say, what do you think is in here that I might not be thinking about that seems important? And then it can sort of draw out other ideas for you to think about. And it's really good for sort of risk analysis, risk detection, making sure that your assumptions are sound, which is pretty cool. But yeah, so again, we give it a fictional sort of use case of a team and what we're doing. We give it some documents that we want to create, and quickly it can just spit back, for example, on this one, an overview of the project, some risks, assumptions, issues, dependencies. Again, try not to think of this as a project management application. Try and think of this as a mechanism for getting whatever regular reporting or documentation that you need from an LLM to help you out a bit. Okay, cool. Number 5. Again, this was sort of flavour of the month in LinkedIn circles, especially when Martin Dalmain brought his book out. If anyone's connected to Martin, he did a book recently on driving more value with sprint goals, and that did very well. And I think in the Scrum framework, sprint goals are probably one of the most criminally underrated elements of the framework that just don't get leveraged effectively. So I wanted to see, could we create an application that could help us create sprint goals effectively? And what I've done here is I've asked for an application that will create sprint goals for my team. And what it'll do is it'll take in a selection of sprint backlog items, and then interrogating those, it'll create three sprint goals in templates that I've defined. So they should be familiar to most of you. We've got Roman Pitchler's template, where we talk about why is this sprint worthwhile? How will we know the goal's met? And how do you determine that the goal's been met? We've got feature advantage benefit. I'm sure everyone's looked at that one before. And newspaper headline. So just a headline of what's going to happen in the sprint. And that's pretty cool. In terms of sprint stories input, we can take from Jira, Confluence, Notepad, whatever we want, just shove that in. And then it'll interpret those and give us 3 sprint goals back, and we get sort of a good sort of spread to think about. This is a really good conversation starter for your team, though. And again, it takes away that manual effort and that thinking time of trying to collate what's going on in these sprint backlog items. How do we sort of fit a narrative around them, which is nice. But there was a mistake in there, in the way I derived that sprint goal. Did anyone catch what I've done wrong? Steve, you look like you know.
Yeah.
Go on.
Well, the sprint backlog shouldn't define the goal.
Bingo. Bingo. What I did was I took some sprint backlog items and put a sprint goal over the top of them. Probably the wrong way around, but it's a very easy fix. Instead of putting the sprint backlog items in now, I just put everything in from the product backlog, and I frame that in the product goal now. And the product goal here is I want to make loads of money. And then from that, the application can, instead of looking at the sprint backlog items and giving me one individual sprint goal for that sprint backlog, it can now look at what the most likely next sprint goals could be that will support the product goal based on everything we've got in the product backlog, which, Steve, I think that sounds like a more sensible way to derive a sprint goal. I'm glad someone from Scrum.org agrees.
Well, and then align to the product goal.
Yes.
Which is the other underused thing.
Absolutely.
in Scrum.
I'm glad we agree. Thanks for the notes on this. But yeah, that's application number 5. Application number 6. This is one I was thinking of for sort of new junior development Scrum Masters to get a read on how they can increase the level of effectiveness or agility within their teams. And a checklist is a good way to start. So I asked for an application that I can use when I join a new team or a different team to assess their level of agility and figure out how we can start improving things. So again, it takes in that fictional description of the team that I described earlier. And what it'll do is give me sort of an assessment that I can look at, some ideas of these are the things that you should be investigating. And just to pull out a couple of things, they're leveraging OpenAI and cloud-based tools using standardized open source frameworks can promote agility, but they should have a plan to maintain these components long term. Not bad. The team's developing a cutting-edge data platform which indicates they're likely adopting new technologies. Yes. This can be great for innovation, but may also indicate a steep learning curve. Yes. I don't think these are particularly bad. I think these are good sort of things that you should be thinking about in this fictional example that we've sketched out. But we can go a step further than the checklist. We can then ask for what should we do based on what we find. And it'll also give you an improvement plan to go with it. Again, I won't go through these sort of line by line, but a couple of good ones. Clearly defining the product vision, scope and roadmap. Very good practices to be in. Ensure proper training and support for working with the new technologies, mitigating the steep learning curve. These are sort of pretty good ideas for the concerns that it's raised. These are the things you can do to address those, which I think is pretty cool. And congratulations, you're now the proud owner of a brand new checklist. Well done. Application number 7. Working with product owners. Again, this is one that I think especially junior Scrum Masters sort of forget about. They're very concentrated on working with the team, and the sort of service to the product owner and the organisation gets forgotten about. So I thought, can we do something that will sort of tease these good habits out and elevate their impact beyond the immediate team? So, working with product owners. This time we asked for an application that can help me discuss some product improvements with the product owner. I'll give you a description of our product, and I'll tell you the areas of interest I've got. So, do I want to create more stickiness? Do I want to create aha moments? Do I want to increase the user base? Whatever we want to do with our product, wherever we want to drive, I'll tell you what the product is and what we want to do, and you give me some ideas. And the example I went with on this was Miro. I'm a really big fan of Miro. If anyone's connected with us, you probably see a load of the Miro junk that I put out there. Apologies. But what I wanted to do here was sort of litmus test it, because I told it what Miro was. I told it that we wanted to create a freemium offering of Miro, and I wanted to see how true to life this was for what Miro actually does. And actually, it's not that bad. Offer a limited number of boards for free accounts. Miro does that. Provide access to templates and widgets in the free version. Miro does that. Allow free users to collaborate with paid users. Yes. Offer a free trial period for paid plans. Gamify the experience. This is not a million miles away. To be as transparent as I can, the only concern I have with this is, and it's not really a concern when you think about it, this AI model has probably been trained on everything, and it probably knows exactly what Miro is, and it probably knows exactly what Miro does. But that's not necessarily bad. It hasn't really cheated the question, because when it comes to a new product or something new, it's going to be able to leverage that experience and bring that into whatever your sort of unique problem and context is. So while there's a risk there that it sort of already knows the answers on the back of the hand, it can then use those for new problems as well. So not all is lost, which is good. And congratulations, pay rises await if you can increase the user base of your product. Very well done. Final application. He's never seen this yet, and I'm very glad because I think you'll hate it. But does anyone follow Michael Lloyd and aware of his dysfunction mapping mechanism or technique? I don't know what the word is. I'm assuming everyone sort of knows. I'm not saying any. Cool. I'll not go into too much detail, but we built an application this time to walk us through the dysfunction mapping process for an error or a symptom that we've got. What I did was I asked for an application that can help me map dysfunctions as an Agile and Scrum practitioner. And I walk it through what the method is that Michael's outlined, where we go from symptom to dysfunction to purpose to solution and then to measure. And the application, same again, it'll take an input, so the problem I'm struggling with, and then step by step it'll walk you through what it wants you to do to put this right. We start with the same one. The team having a daily scrum, it's always going over 15 minutes. How do we rein that in? The dysfunction there is a lack of focus on the sprint goal. I think that's about right. The purpose, the sprint goal is the single objective that guides and unites the Scrum team, offering flexibility in how it's achieved while fostering collaboration and focus. That could have come from the Scrum guide. In fact, it did. So that was pretty good. The solution, facilitate discussion and team contributions in relation to the sprint goal, using the session to review progress towards the sprint goal. All other discussion should be deferred. That's a pretty good solution. Let's concentrate on the sprint goal. Everything else can wait. And the measure. Number of times the sprint goal runs over the time box in the next sprint, and we're expecting a downward trend to indicate progress. One map completed in less than 2 minutes. So that's, again, really helping to outsource a lot of the sort of the heavy lifting, the deep thinking, the analysis that we need to do. We can sort of outsource a lot of that. It will never be perfect. It will never get it all right. But for giving you a really good starter for 10 and helping to get the ideas flowing and get the wheels spinning again, I think these are all pretty helpful. That's about all the applications I've got on Party Rock, but we can go further. And there's lots of other stuff you can do, especially if you're technically inclined. The first one I want to talk about is sort of a little bit of a pattern or strategy around RAG, which I've found really helpful before. What we'll do is we'll take a lot of the documentation and outputs that we create in the life of a project or a delivery or a sprint and put those into a bucket, a folder, whatever it may be, and just put the AI hat on top of it. You can do that in ChatGPT natively by using the attach document widget, but there's also the way to do custom GPTs now, where you can just front load everything, and now you've got an AI-powered tool that is not only trained across various and weird and wonderful things, but it's also now a subject matter expert in your particular project and your particular delivery. So now you've got not only a rich vein of context that you've front-loaded this AI with, you've now got an expert in the exact situation that you're working on at hand, which can be really useful and really improves the results that you can get. Can anyone, I'm sure we're all thinking the same thing, can anyone see the problem with this?
So only as good as the information that's in the document.
Very true, but there's a bigger problem.
Leakage of intellectual property.
Bingo. If you do this, this is not yours anymore. This now belongs to ChatGPT. So I would be very careful about doing anything sensitive there, which is the biggest risk or the biggest sort of concern most businesses have got. But there are solutions now. Using Azure and something called Bring Your Own Data, you can now put much more effective guardrails and blockers around what happens with your data. And your data doesn't even necessarily need to leave your machine to be used in this AI sort of context now. There will always be some level of risk around, is what they're saying they're doing actually what they're doing? But this feels a lot more sort of safe and secure than just offering it up to the will of the gods. This at least is going to give you more sort of input around what your data is going to be used for, where it's going to go, and if it's even going to leave the scene. So that's pretty good and pretty useful. Also pretty straightforward to do. I think I learned to do this in about half an hour, 45 minutes. So it's absolutely not a tough thing to do, but something that can help you to get over those immediate concerns of where's our data going, is it still ours anymore? Going beyond that, this again is a good strategy. And a really frustrating thing I think a lot of people get is they ask an AI a question, then they ask another question from this area of the universe, then they ask a question from here, and the AI is like, what are you asking for? What I like to do, especially when I'm starting a thread with an LLM of a new problem, I'll sort of give it the context as best I can, and then ask a question. But I'll say, I want to do whatever I want to do. I want to figure out, are Sunderland going to win the league this year? I want you to ask me at least 5 clarifying questions to build your understanding before you give me the answer to that question. And this is really good. A little bit how, when we talked about doing the speech-to-text thing, we're creating a conversational dynamic with this now. And not only am I taking a guess about what's useful to the AI and trying to front load that, I'm asking it, what do you need from me to help you do what I'm asking you to do? Again, a little bit like working with your development team. How can I set you up for success? How can I make your life easier? That should be quite native to people in this room, I would have thought, is Agile and Scrum people. That's sort of the fabric of what we do. So that's one way. So the image stuff, I really find a lot of fun. And there's a lot of different use cases I've got for this, but I'll walk through 3 sort of little ones and then we'll go a bit bigger. So, say I've got a developer in my team called Dwight, and we want to generate some new avatars for Slack, Confluence in an 8-bit video game style. LLMs can help us do that. Say I'm going to run a virtual LEGO Serious Play session, and I want some icons or avatars for my team to move around the Miro board. It can help me with that as well. And it's funny that you mentioned that you're in Lithuania, because this slide was in there and no one had a clue what it meant. But I'm hoping everyone here will understand this. If you had someone in your childhood who made you miserable for decades, called Alan Shearer, you can now take him and turn him into a Sunderland fan, which gives me so much joy. But this actually landed this time, which is great. But this is pretty good, because we're taking natural images that we can get from LinkedIn or wherever and translating them into something else that we can use digitally, virtually, whatever we want to do. And I'll apologise up front, I've taken a bit of a liberty here, Agile Yorkshire people. But this is a really good sort of engagement hack that I've used recently in retrospectives. And again, I'd encourage you all to try this because I find this very good and very useful. But let's imagine we're going to do an Agile Yorkshire retrospective and I've got this mob together. And I want to put them into a themed retrospective, some kind of fantasy novel thing, whatever we want to do. I can then put these into the LLM and get the assets back that I can then build discussion prompts about, a little bit like that.
Have you been on my Goodreads?
And this is really cool because when I've tried this in retrospective, this really dials the engagement up to sort of Mach 5. This is really something that teams enjoy working with. I've got no doubt it's short-lived and it won't last forever. But if you're looking to freshen something up and give them a bit of a curveball to bring some new ideas to your retro, this is a really good way to do it. And this is no slight against anyone in the Agile Yorkshire team, but the pictures are incredibly flattering, even the ones I've done of myself.
I'm going to use that one.
So if you'd like a new LinkedIn picture, this is the way to go. But yeah, and we can keep going on this. And in a lot of ways, this, I think, to go on a bit of a tangent, but humour me, I think this is probably the future of advertising for us. I think we will be going past virtual boards like bus stops, train stations, whatever. They'll have a camera on that'll look at you, figure out who you are, go to all of your social media, figure out who your family and friends are, figure out what you like to do, figure out where you work, and it'll dynamically create stuff like this. So, for example, Sean, would you like a Ferrari? Here's you in a Ferrari with a beautiful lady next to you going down Monaco Beach. And I think that this is really going to be the future of what advertising is going to look like for us, which is powerful and interesting, but also very scary. But let's keep on. So, can anyone tell me what this is?
From Midjourney.
Not quite, no.
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones is a good one, yes. We've got Game of Thrones characters. It's a retrospective, a very familiar format that you'll all have done.
Like Club.
Exactly, bingo, 10 points to you. We're looking at a 4 hours retrospective from Game of Thrones with the themed characters illustrating the liked, learned, lacked, longed for messages, which is pretty cool. And we can just keep going on this stuff just to show you one more example. We can do an Office sailboat retrospective where we've got Jim harnessing the wind, really pushing us forward. We've got Pam sitting in the sun, makes us feel good, what did we enjoy? We've got Dwight, who's an anchor holding us back, making us all miserable. And then we've got Michael grimly looking out at the rocks and the future risks that are ahead and what's going to mess us up as we go forward to the next sprint. And these are all pretty cool. As I say, I encourage you to try this because this really made a difference when I've tried it. I would just say be careful of overusing it. Similar to themed retrospectives, I think they can get old quickly, but these have been really effective for me. So this is sort of a newer part that I've played with, and this is going to be a bit of a live example, so I hope this goes to plan. But if you are even slightly technically inclined, you can do a lot of development work now with assistance from LLMs. Claude's probably the best one I've used. ChatGPT can also do things, but Claude's the best I've used so far. Just to give you an idea, to-do list app takes about 10 seconds now. A Kanban board of your own takes about 20 seconds. And a lean coffee application, 20 seconds to do. These are all pretty good. And the really nice thing is I didn't actually have to do much tweaking on these. It sort of knew exactly what I wanted, created a custom application, and then hands it over, which is pretty nice. But I have got an example that I'm going to try and walk through now. And this is, I hope this will illustrate the mechanism slightly, but just to go a little bit more sort of meta on this. This is a conversation I had yesterday with Claude. I appreciate you can't see it. That's not the important bit. I'll sort of read the prompt and I'll show you what it gives back. So the prompt was, I'm feeling a bit nostalgic. Can you create a Super Mario platform game I can play? And it says, yep, no problem. Here it is. So first thing we get is this. And actually, if I click in, this isn't too bad. So we're moving, we can jump, we go on platforms. That's all pretty good. And the really nice thing is, I'll scroll down slightly. It says, here's your game. Do you want me to put some coins in there to collect, some enemies for you to avoid, different types of platforms, a score system, sound effects? Tell me what you want and I'll keep going. that's really good. Because now it's not only doing the development, it's doing the product management for me as well. What do I need other people for? I am all powerful now. But yeah, this is pretty cool. And we can quickly iterate on stuff. So we did a next one where we put some coins in. And if I'm right, this is a pretty cruel example, because if I click in, we can jump around, we can collect coins. We've got a score on the top left, which is great. But if I get all of these, apologies, I haven't played Mario for a while. I will win. Yep. So cruelly, it puts the last one out of reach. So you can't win. But we can keep going forward. So after we've asked for coins in a win condition, I then told it again. I can't reach the last coin for some reason. Can you make this accessible so I can complete the game? It took a couple of tries, but it got there in the end. And then we've now got a game that we can play to the finish, I think. Yep, pretty good. How impressed he is with my gameplay. There we go. And we can just customize this however we want. And the final one I've made was one with a custom win message, which I'm hoping I can do a bit quicker this time. Ooh. Yeah, so we've got Agile Yorkshire in there. So this is pretty, that might have taken 5 minutes. This is really powerful stuff that can really help you iterate stuff really quickly. And for anyone who's slightly technically inclined, a really nice piece of this, and I haven't touched development code for a long time, but we can navigate to the code in here. I won't lie, this is not ultra complex code, but a really nice thing we can do is, for example, we can highlight sort of this area of the code, and a little dialog pops up where we can either tell me what this is, explain to me like a human what's going on here, or if I click improve, I can tell it change this to bum, which is how I got the custom Agile Yorkshire message in there. You might also have noticed if I restart the game, there is a coin here, which is hidden. So moving that up the y-axis would also be an adjustment that you can make. You don't need to be even a junior level developer anymore to really use code to solve complex problems, which is really exciting for me and powerful. And I think the use case is just your imagination is the only limit at this point. But let's just cycle back. So, excellent. Okay, and Agile delivery use cases are good. One other avenue that I found that's been really good is around L&D and training. I do a lot on Miro, and Chip is another AI tool that I stumbled across. If you've used ChatGPT to create a custom GPT, this allows you to create a custom GPT, but then embed it in iframe code. iframe code's a little bit old-fashioned, but it's incredibly versatile. It allows you to take what you've done now and put it basically anywhere, and you can put it into a Miro board. So, recently I attended a talk by Fortune, and she talked about the Toyota Improvement Kata, and I thought, for a junior Scrum Master, for someone who's developing an Agile, that's a really good thing to learn about. So what we did was took that and put it into a Miro board. There is a theme here around the office for anyone who's office inclined. But what I've done is created a Miro board with some instructions. We navigate around the screen to different people. But each one of these people is a chip-powered AI custom GPT now. This is really good because instead of me now having to create engaging, thoughtful documentation, videos, slideshows around what the Toyota Improvement Kata are, all I need to do is educate these LLMs on what the Toyota Improvement Kata are. And now they are able to hold an intelligent and sort of contextually relevant conversation with people who want to learn about it. All I need to do is instruct these LLMs around what the core subject matter I want them to teach people about is, and it's over to them. Because people can now interact with these and ask them questions about the kata that if I'm creating a piece of documentation, I can't possibly hope to cover all the use cases. With something like this, I can, which is, again, incredibly powerful and gives you a lot of versatility in L&D and training programs, which is really nice. I talked about free stuff. This is one of my free things, actually. So on my link tree, there's a link to this Miro board. If you complete it, there's a little bit of an exercise at the end, and you can get a micro certification around Toyota Improvement Kata. This will not change your career. It will not get you a job. It won't make a material difference in a job search. But if you want to learn about the mechanism and figure out how you could use that more effectively, try this out. You'll probably learn quite a bit around how you can effectively leverage AI in that L&D context. But if you want to keep learning more, another thing I've done is created a learning plan on my Linktree in the Miro board. This is really cool. And even if you're not a tech person, even if you're not a developer or architect, right, it's really good to learn about this, because I think there's a lot of sort of latent level of anxiety and fear around what AI is going to do. The more you learn about how LLMs especially work, I think the more your fears will be allayed. In my opinion, we're probably getting towards the limitations of what's going to be possible with LLMs in the current architecture. 2 reasons. It's heavily statistically sort of weighted, and there's limitations to what can be done there. But the bigger reason, we're now running out of data to give them. So in terms of the foundational level training, I don't think GPT-5 will be the jump from 3 to 4. 4 to 5 will be smaller, and 5 to 6 will be smaller. And that shouldn't be news to anyone, really. It's always that last 10 to 5% that's the toughest to get in every project, every delivery, every diet that you do. As you get towards the end, that's where it gets really, really unforgiving. And I think that's sort of where we're getting to with this sort of technology now. And it's going to be more about the tips, the tricks, the hacks that you can come up with to get those interesting use cases out. So I think that's just about it. So a few key takeaways from me. AI is not going away. It's going to be here to stay. It seems to be quite useful to me. I'd encourage you to go out with sort of an experimentation mindset. Try some things, see what you can get out of it. The more you use these, the more natural it'll become, and the more sort of intuitive you'll get around how to leverage them effectively. And if you get any good use cases, anything interesting, anything that you think is useful, please get in touch and let me know. I'm always looking for new ways to try these out and bring them into my workflow. And yeah, that's it. Hopefully we'll have some time for questions, but I think that's everything.